Hello, and welcome back to We've Got Options with the Doctor and Son. We're back today, and thank you for coming back to join us. We are talking about self care and well being. We started this topic on last week, and when we talked about it last week, we kind of gave an intro talking about having social self care, talking about emotional self care, spiritual self care, physical self care, as well as professional self care. We talked about mental health, we talked about physical health, we talked about spiritual health, we talked about emotional health when it all boils down to self care. And a lot of things we came up last week were good tips and things and activities you can use in order to make sure that you're coming up with a great self care plan. So today we wanted to go back into talking about self care. And with that, we're talking about practical self care and professional self care. When we start talking about practical self care, a lot of people say, okay, so what's practical self care? For the most part, when we talk about practical self care, that's mainly like the things you do every day, almost like preparing for the day or preparing for those things. As in, you were off the weekend and you're getting ready to go in on a Monday morning and you want to organize your email box so that you can have the emails that are junk mail in its proper place and the emails that are very important for you to kind of go through and make sure that it's going to keep you on task for the next day, having those emails in their perspective places. And then also just thinking about in your personal life, just tidying things up in your living space. Some people, now that, of course, COVID has happened, a lot of us have home offices. Keeping those home offices nice and tidy, or the living space, the bedroom, nice and tidy, making the bed every day. That could be something we can consider practical self care. And then we can also talk about different things that we probably wouldn't even consider, but could be also self care. And that's going into talk about our finances with the financial advisor. Just keeping up with things like that would be a great way so that you can know that you're keeping things on track. If you're trying to buy a house, if you're trying to create that monthly budget or that weekly budget for yourself, staying on track with your finances. And then also, kind of setting out your clothes for the week, going ahead and doing some meal prep for the week. A lot of those things help you to stay on track with things versus feeling all anxious and on edge about and rushing through getting everything ready the next morning for work. You can have that done the weekend before it's time to go to work, and just have your preparation done for the week so you don't feel like you're rushing through the week. That's a level of self-care that people sometimes don't even think about. What are your thoughts on some of those practical self-care tips?
I mean, when you think about what you think about of self care, and that term may not seem like much, but for the most part, it does work. Little things like that does work. Just taking the time to actually like hold your clothes and be like, you know, having that moment to breathe is very
Hmm.
important because half the time, speaking from my personal experience, I get overwhelmed with doing everything week to week. It just becomes like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, and
Hmm.
it feels like you have no time to breathe at all.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm like, just that moment to be like, nah, you have a moment to breathe in which you can sit there and actually take your time with
Hmm.
things.
Yeah.
Every
Preparing.
yeah,
Yeah.
preparing. Everything isn't, oh, it's just the next week. It's just the next week. It's take it day by day.
Yes, taking it day by day. And I think preparing, like to prepare on a Sunday evening for Monday through Friday is something that's would be helpful for me, of course. And I prepare a little bit different due to my schedule, but I do prepare on one day of the week in order to make sure that I have everything in order for the busiest times of the week when I don't really have time to stop and make a lunch bag or stop and iron my clothing for that day. I'll do everything on a Sunday for a full Monday through Friday week. Or even if I'm going to have a short week, I'll go ahead and say, okay, so Tuesday's my day to prepare for my Wednesday through Friday activities where I'll be moving back to back, working 12 to 14-hour days on different activities that I have in place to get things done. And that's a level of self care that I think we don't think about, but it's really practical self care, practical things to help you take care of yourself.
Yeah, very easy things that you can do
Absolutely.
that you wouldn't think of otherwise.
Absolutely. And it's a part of that plan that we're talking about. Another thing we wanted to share here is talking about professional self care. And professional self care would be as far as, kind of your career, your occupation. And that would be looking like taking a course here and there, attending a conference, you know, really putting yourself in it for the winning, as in wanting to improve on yourself. Make sure that you are developing skills and that you are wanting to work on yourself, or even working and getting yourself a mentor that can help you with some of those.
Yeah, it's very good to have a thing that it's very good to always have things to learn,
Hmm.
even if they're even if it's simple as something that you're interested in, so
Absolutely.
that you can. It's more life is more fun when you continue to grow and you feel like you've accomplished something, even if it is something that's a little different than what you're doing.
Absolutely. I think that really plays into the professional self care. Sometimes I tell people, take a sick day if you need to, or take a mental health day from work. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself so that you can be your best self when you return. You definitely want to take the downtime. You want to set calendar reminders, and you want to look at, taking walks at lunch. You want to be able to take some time after work with some coworkers and being able to take care of yourself. So, as we're talking about self care for this week, we just want to make sure that people are definitely having time to do that. So, we're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be back right after we have some words from our sponsors. And this show is sponsored by Green McElwain Properties, home ownership planning and investment property planning. Give them a call at 704-492-1105. And we're back with We Got Options with the Son and Doctor as your host. We're talking about self care and wellness. We're back with more good information about self care. So, when we're thinking about self care and our wellness whole process and coming up with a plan or just making sure that we're taking care of ourselves, when we think self care, a lot of times I always ask people, so what do you think of when you think of self care? A lot of times I hear things like improving health and establishing healthier habits. Sometimes I hear people say, doing things that's going to help me fight the fatigue, help me to eat better, help me get more exercise in, just becoming a healthier me overall. What are some of your thoughts when it comes down to self care and well being, overall well being?
I mean, self care and well being is very much taking care of yourself, but also making sure that making sure you have. I think it's a good time to also reflect about your priorities and what are you doing,
Absolutely, I agree.
because having that goal for self improvement is fine, but you also want to have the goal there for your self improvement. What do you want out of the self improvement? You don't want to just say, "Oh, I just want to self improve."
Right. I think sometimes people think about, self care and, you think about self improvement, like you mentioned, but I think they don't think that it really pertains in different areas of your life, which for me, I think it does. Because when I think about self care, I tell people I think about self care as in my family self care, what I do to make sure that I'm going to be a good mom, make sure I'm going to be a great family member for my different family members, great auntie, great cousin, great mom, great sister, great bro. I just tell people, you wrap it all together for the most part. And then I also tell people, and then you want to look at your work life balance. You want to look at having that, plan of self care for your working life. So you want to be able to make sure that you're able to balance things, and you want to make sure that you have a healthy work life and a healthy personal life. Just making sure that both can be as balanced as possible. And then I also think we kind of start thinking about looking at your passion, looking at your purpose in life. Like you said, what are you're thinking about self-care and taking care of yourself, but what is the big picture? What is the big thing you're looking at? Your true
Yeah, what do you
passions.
want? What do you want to see of yourself in that time?
Mhm.
Because doing healthy things and having that be a thing is great.
Mhm.
But like, do you want to be healthy enough that you just coasting through? I mean
Mhm.
that's fine.
Mhm.
That is fine and admirable in its own way to just keep
Mhm.
healthy.
Absolutely.
But you definitely want a picture in your mind of what you want to be like
Oh
after
yeah.
after everything is all said and done.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing sometimes is kind of figuring out, okay, what drives me and what is the goal that I want to get to. So even if the goal, like I would say with some of my students that come in sometime for counseling, some of the things I talk to them about is, okay, so what's your goal for next year? Oh, well, I just really want to pass my grade. Okay, so what does that look like to make sure that we're preparing and that you feel healthy enough and well enough to get to the next grade? So what are those things? Doing your homework every night, setting up a calendar so you can make sure that you have assignments turned in on time. And maybe that calendar can be up on the wall in the bedroom or up in the kitchen where mom and dad can see those assignments also. So it's always kind of having a goal or a purpose or,
It's all about balance and everything.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And then it's also a level of managing your stress. Keep
Yeah,
taking the stress away.
because what we have spoken about is a lot. Those are a lot of things,
Hmm.
and like I said before, it can all be very overwhelming.
Yes, yes. It's very anxiety provoking, to be
Mhm.
honest with you. And that's one of the reasons why I tell people self-care is so important, because it ties into our mental health and making sure that we are, doing all the things that we can do and have all the tools in place to help keep things calm, help us stay to a point where we can be recharged versus having such a, stressful time and feeling like you have so much on you at one time. You can take your time and work through things, right?
Yeah, I mean the ins and outs of the working environment of I got to go to work every day, and then like it's literally everybody's Saturdays and Sundays are theirs, right? But
Hmm.
even with that, it's like that's not enough time to recover. That's simply just not. It's not.
Well, it's not. And that's why having a self care plan in place is great to have, because it does help us to be able to, again, keep that balance in our lives, keep that balance in our career development, and, being able to help us map things out, even refine, think about our career goals and what we're doing and how we're going to keep things balanced to make sure that we get there. Even when we start talking about job transitions and people being in entrepreneurship roles and things of that nature, it's a lot. But self-care is one of those things that is very important to make sure you're balanced. And even myself, when I think about being, working in the community as well as working in some of the different opportunities that I have come across, I tell people all the time, self-care is major, trying to make sure that I get a nap sometimes, making sure that I go to bed at a reasonable time at night, making sure I'm able to get in a workout or two, those things are very important.
Yeah, that's really important because w- it's always there's always things in your life that you're going to have to take responsibility for, and you want to take when you're taking responsibilities for the things in your life, you want to be able to come at that fully and not come at come at it half half cocked and everything.
Right. You don't want to half step with it.
Yeah, you don't want to half
Yeah.
step with it at all.
Yeah. So with that, we'll go ahead and go to a commercial break and we'll come back. And this show is being sponsored by Dr. Dream Dancer Studios, providing a variety of dance classes and individual and group instructional time in person and online. You can reach them at 704-492-1105. Again, that's 704-492-1105. Dr. Dream Dancer Studios. And we're back with We Got Options with the Doctor and Son. So, because we're talking about self care and well being, we wanted to also jump a little bit into what are some of the things that we get out of self care. What do we get? What do we see when we know we're taking care of our health care? I mean, our self care, and that we are definitely putting in that extra plan to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves. So, some of the things that I thought about is how we are presenting ourselves in front of people, how visible we are when we are taking care of ourselves. We tend to find ourselves in a position where we are able to use more of our authentic voices when we're talking to people because we really understand what it is that we need and what it is that we're putting out to individuals. And then we're also able to be authentic with understanding and genuine with understanding what others are needing as well. So I think, really considering that you're digging deep and taking care of yourself, then you can be a real supporter to others in that manner that you really are genuine with them about being able to take care of themselves. And then also thinking about taking care of our well-being and finding our purpose and our meaning for the work that we do, the life that we live, and just everything that we do, live, participate in, family life and things of that nature. When we're thinking about taking care of our well-being and having a self-care plan, that's those are some major things, I think, don't you?
Yeah, they're very major things. And as I always say, everything isn't a race. It's all about taking steps.
Absolutely. Also, I think it leads to our level of confidence.
Yeah,
Yeah, what we're putting out there in front of people, we build up
better
ourselves.
better relationships as well. Because
Absolutely. Hmm.
it tends to happen when you have yourself in order. You're able to notice things that you didn't notice before. You know,
Exactly.
whenever you're with the person that you're with, whether it's family or your significant other,
Coworkers, significant others.
anyone.
Yeah, you can be very inspiring and uplifting to other people. You can be very empowering to them, and you can be very empowering to yourself. So it's a lot of times, if you're feeling good, then people will want to be around you because you're going to make them feel good.
Mhm.
So self-care is a major part of our, again, mental health, well-being, and making sure that we're being the best persons that we can be, the best authentic person that we can be, the best genuine person that we can be. So in terms of thinking of some of the things that we do for self care, I tend to do a lot of guided meditation. I like to do different meditations that I typically do mine at night for the most part. And then I think about some of the body scans and relaxation and things like that also that I do. I do mine on a daily basis. It's at night for the most part. And it's, one or the other. It's that guided meditation. And then I roll into some kind of that body scan where I'm using that for relaxation. So that's something that I do on a regular basis. And I do recommend that to a lot of individuals that I work with, a lot of professional individuals that I work with, clients I may work with, patients I may see. I just let them know that really taking time for them is a part of their self-care as well. That's a part of the self-care plan. Are there anything that you would like to share as far as some things that you may do to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and understanding that self-care is critical to your mental health and to your well-being? Those are things that you do on a daily basis to kind of make sure that you're doing just that.
I mean, I think it's all really about having fun, finding joy in what you're doing,
Absolutely.
even if it's something simple as doing the dishes. If you're listening to music and jamming out doing the dishes, that's what you do. That's your thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is major, I think, sometimes. Just doing whatever makes you happy.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be something grand or something overly luxurious.
Absolutely. I think that both of us are sharing things that are not really grand or overly luxurious for the most part.
I mean, I know that, but people
Think
people
that's what it is.
tend to be like,
Oh, I have to go get a
yeah,
massage. Yeah, and pay $150 for a massage.
yeah,
No, not necessarily. I myself do foot massages on myself sometimes with a tennis ball under my foot, and just rolling my foot across the tennis ball. That's a nice foot massage for me, and that's also a nice back massage for me sometimes. So those are free things that I do.
hmm
Yeah,
I mean, you don't want to spend money on everything that you have to do to relax because
yeah, and you don't
the,
have to.
I like number one, everything costs money. You want to keep it
Absolutely.
all in the bank sometimes. So I'm sorry, the penny pincher is coming out of me. Where if I don't have to do something and I could do it myself, I would. So
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think people have to think about it also, that also puts stress on you when you think you gotta spend money to make this grand plan of self-care. No, you don't. You don't have to add that stress to you. And then when I tell people also, I said, well, thinking about self-care doesn't have to be stressful, because stress is one of those things we're trying to avoid by coming up with a
yeah,
self-care plan.
it's the idea of, like I said before, having fun with it. If it's nothing,
Absolutely.
if it's nothing that you can personally enjoy, then you do not need to be doing.
Absolutely. I always tell people, when you think about the stress levels that come in, that we're trying to avoid, that helps, that put us at a higher risk for developing depression, anxiety, also heart disease, other health issues that come along with the level of stress that we deal with on a daily basis. Just really thinking about practicing self care every day and starting a routine, that is something that would really put us in a better light, of, taking care of ourselves. Sometimes it could be simple things like taking vitamins, drinking water, upping your water intake.
Mhm.
Yeah. Practice mindful breathing.
Yeah, I think what we always try to perform with this radio show is that we try to basically put in your mind that there are not big. Nothing has to be big and grandiose for you to improve or to get better at something.
Absolutely. Yeah, simple things like volunteering,
Yeah,
volunteering at a nursery versus like a nursery for flowers versus a nursery for kids. I mean, it doesn't have to be major. It could be just simple things. I tell people, just washing my car is self care for me.
yeah. The minor take pride. Well, I'll say it like this: take pride in the mundane.
Right, the simple things. Totally, totally get it. Being at a place where you can treat yourself, you can definitely be able to express that gratitude for being able to, eat well, have a well balanced meal, or be able to have a day where you do a well balanced meal. Sometimes I'm fasting. I watch my nutrition intake, and that's just to help to make sure that I'm, keeping up with how much calories I'm eating and things. Well, I don't count calories, I'm gonna say that. But with fasting, I'm able to make sure that I'm eating within a certain window. Sometimes I make my window 8 hours, sometimes I make it 6 hours. It just how I feel. And
Yeah,
yeah,
you must do it at your own pace. That's
absolutely.
important
Absolutely.
because sometimes we get into our minds that we must do things to the letter of other people.
Hmm.
And when we do things to the letter of people and we find out the results don't work for us, we think that that's a bad thing. No, you need to gear it to yourself. You are
Absolutely.
different than everyone
Everybody,
else.
yes.
All of us are special within our own way.
Absolutely. So I think, with saying all that, to be honest with you, I think this show, talking about self care, to wrap everything up, is just to really say that you have your own lifestyle and how you do things. And we think that, with that being said, everybody, when you're thinking about a self care plan, we're not asking you to go out there and create something brand new and grandiose, but just something simple as I make up my bed every day. And that's a part of my self care plan, to make sure that I'm moving forward and doing something for myself every day. So when I get home, I can, take my shower and kind of wind down and get into a nice, crisp made up bed when I get home every evening, and that makes me feel good. So those are the things, kind of, just simple things like that. A lot of times I tell people, just really being genuine for what you do and what makes you happy is going to be the biggest part of creating a self care plan. And with that, this is We Got Options with the Doctor and Son. Make sure you come back to join us next week when we're going to start talking about springtime activities that support good mental health and wellness. So until the next time, we'll see you later. This show, We Got Options with the Doctor and Son, was brought to you by Insightful Options, PLLC, Counseling and Consulting Services, providing substance abuse assessments, DWI assessments, domestic violence, and mental health counseling. You can reach them at www.insightful-options.com, and you can give them a call at 704-492-1105.